Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
Welcome to another episode of Talking Grit. I am Jason Harwood. With me is Jacob Litton. We are not in a good mood. It's going to be tough going the rest of the season. Lions lose to the Rams. Shootout game, high scoring as we expected. Jacob, how are you feeling right now?
Disappointed, obviously. This was the one game we could afford to lose, right? We were looking at the remaining schedule. We're like, if we were going to drop one, this would be the game to drop to a really good Rams team. But, something about how well we played in the first half and how bad we played in the second half really walked away from this one not feeling great about it. What about you, though? What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, just disappointment and just frustration all the way around. Being up by 10, feeling really good going into the second half. Like if we could, just maintain this, we're going to go ahead and win this game. It's going to catapult us into a place we want to be, and it wouldn't have, if we'd have won that game, it would not have been out of the realm to win the division still, considering what happened to the Packers. Micah Parsons tearing his ACL, that's going to really make life difficult for the Packers the rest of the way here. And then now it's, with this loss, now we're fighting for our playoff life. So it felt like the rug was pulled out from underneath. It really felt like not as bad as the 49ers game, but it felt like that same vein. Like, okay, going in, let's keep it competitive. Let's just not get blown out. Oh, we're up by 10 and we're, our offense is just dominating. Let's just keep this show going. And then the third quarter came and it was a nightmare. I don't know how to say from both ref calling standpoint, a Lions execution standpoint, on both offensively and defensively. So it was just frustrating all around.
Yeah, first half, pretty good half of football. Third quarter, everything fell apart. And then, by the time the fourth quarter came around, it was one of those, it was just too little too late. And it still wasn't great in the fourth quarter. I mean, the game was still there late, and we just were not able to stop them. We're not able to execute.
Yep. No. There were so many reasons for that, and we'll get into this when we get to the, we'll get into each of the units and we'll go through that. Dan Campbell, on offense, some calls that puzzled me for sure. Just offensive calls, that I'm sure he looks back on and go, why'd I do it that way? Defensively, Shep should not be getting a pass. I get that our secondary is not what it should be, but we cannot continue to keep playing this way. That being said, the Rams are a really good team. They're number one seed in the NFC for a reason. It was going to take a really clean game and probably one of the best games we played all season to beat them, and we did not do that. So it is what it is.
True, but I mean, watching the first quarter play out, we didn't have to play our best game. We had it, right? We had it there. We were doing enough. We did enough to win the game. Had that trend continued into the third quarter, things would have looked differently.
Yep. Well, I mean, this whole season, the Lions haven't been able to play their brand of football that we've been accustomed to for the last, couple seasons, and that is bully ball in the second half. We're the ones getting bullied. We could not stop their run, and I'm sure we could talk about that when we get the defensive, it's going to be hard to stop that higher powered offense if they're constantly in second and third and short. It is too hard to play the guessing game on there on what they could do. They have too many weapons. Stafford's too smart. It really put us in a bind by us not being able to stop the run.
Right. And I mean, we did better against the pass, but not good enough. And that, when we dissect a little more, but when you get in these third and fourth down situations, we can't let them execute on 4th and 4. And then a minute later, they're 4th and 8 and they go for it and they still get it. You can't do that.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you stop them, you do a good job stopping them on third down, but then you let every fourth down conversion go up. We have not been able to, I don't know what, have we stopped? When's the last time we stopped a team on fourth down? It's been so long that I can't even remember.
Right.
It seems like every time.
Yeah.
We are not turning people over on downs, and we need to take possessions away. I mean, on defense, you need to stop them. And, you know, when they went for it on 4th and 8 and they got it, I was like, oh my God. I mean, that's just a kick in the pants right
That
there.
was crushing.
Yeah. So a couple transactions this weekend we can quickly go over. Brian Branch went on IR, which obviously was anticipated because he went in surgery. They just kind of delayed it. But we got to activate Shane Zylstra from, tight end from IR. So, getting a tight end, a pass catching tight end, I thought would be better. Did we even target him in this game, though? I don't believe that he had a target.
He did not.
For a while, it was just Amon-Ra, Jameson, and Gibbs getting targets.
The only other person that caught a pass, Khalif Raymond caught one pass. I think that Tesla got one target, but no one else was even targeted.
Yeah. Well, Tesla's one target was in the end zone that was late, fourth quarter.
Right.
We eventually get that, penalty that give us a new fresh set of downs. At some point, we'll talk about the crazy calls in this game. I feel like we're, talking about this constantly every week, and I don't want to be known as a podcast that constantly complains about refs because there were some baffling calls in this game. 100%, we could have played better so that those calls we don't have to count those as why we lost the game. However, there's one call in particular there's two calls in this game that I was really upset by, and we'll get to those a little bit later on. This isn't transaction, but Kirby Joseph had a setback last week, they said. So, it, I'm beginning to question whether he's going to even play, the rest of the season. And man, we could have really used Kirby yesterday. Hallett is not the answer back there. He's just not. We're putting a lot on his shoulder. Thomas Harper being back would have been even an upgrade over Hallett. I would have been all right. Maddox is fine, but you miss those one or two plays a game, really more than that, but one or two splash plays that Branch makes every game that you're just like, he just comes up, stuffs the run, gets some extra pressure on a quarterback. I'm talking about those amazing plays. He's pretty consistent defensively. Obviously, we all know what Brian Branch can do, but it's just, Maddox, I think, could hold his own and do what we need him to do in that position during Branch's absence.
I like what we've seen from Avante. I
Mm-hmm.
think having Avante Maddox and Thomas Harper back there is enough that we can win football games. And we could have with
100%.
Hallett. Hallett had some moments here and there, but
Yeah. We just need some we were getting tight coverage back there. Really. I mean, DJ Reed was the one that's getting burned the most. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious, but putting him one-on-one with Puka Nacua, that's a tough ask for any cornerback. But the problem is that he was just getting totally, he'd be 3 yards behind. And Stafford was off on some of his throws that allowed our defenders to get up and have a chance at that. But even at that, Puka Nacua, other than the drop he had, his hands are just so strong. He's just, anything that's near him, he's going to, if he gets in his hands, you're not going to knock it out, unfortunately. And he proved that over and over.
Right. Definitely. I mean, we'll break it down a little more in a minute, but
yeah. Yep. That's kind of out. Dominic Lovett when it was inactive for this game. That was like one of the first times this season that he's went inactive, and that was to get Tom Kennedy, who they were not kicking to in this game. We'll get to the special teams in a second, but for the most part, they were kicking touchbacks pretty consistently, which not many teams do anymore. So I was kind of surprised, like why they ended up doing that. I know we had a pretty good return game last week, but I just don't think that we're that dangerous that you decide to just kick it out of bounds. But maybe they had so much faith in their defense that they didn't want to give their special teams, any chance to screw it up. I guess I'm not sure.
Maybe if that was the game plan going in, but after seeing how the game was going and seeing how our offense was moving the ball, that surprising that they kept doing it that way. And I don't know if that's typically the Rams strategy. I don't have that in front of me to see how often they do just kick touchbacks. Maybe they do that more frequently than others, but it's not like Devin Hester was back there. I'm sure they did not see Tom Kennedy and say we're kicking it away from this guy.
Yeah, exactly. Special teams, while we're on the subject, Jay Bates 2 for 3, missed that 43-yarder. Man, just right away, man. It just felt like we're snake bitten.
And that's
how
a
we missed
killer,
that.
right? Because it was like, you know what? I agreed with that decision by Dan Campbell because that was the first one that was like, are we going to go for it on fourth down? And it was like, you know what? We had a decent drive. We're driving down. It's probably pretty good to get some points on the board here. And, you know, it's 4th and 4. So that's right in that mid range where it's like not exactly, you know, 4th and 1, 4th and 2. We like to do play action, throw, or kind of do whatever we want. And this is a little bit further out. 43 yarder. He's got to make those kicks. And that was just a killer right away, you know, to try to take the points, and then it wasn't blocked or anything. He just missed.
Yeah, it was just it just leaves you such a bad taste in your mouth, and you're just like, then the whole time I'm sure Dan Campbell's like, I should have just went for it if we're gonna miss that,
Right.
and like, we keep, there's a certain percentage of people that are like, we got to take the points when they're there, but it's a reminder that those points are not guaranteed. I mean, I know the kickers are really good and pretty consistent, but they're not guaranteed points. So it's not like you could say, oh, every time he goes forward, he's just giving the ball away. Well, you know, our offense proved in that first half that we were missing. So it's potential that we gave up, you know, because he missed the kick, a potential that we gave up 7 points. But really, if he'd have made it, it'd have been, a 4-point difference had we scored a touchdown. So I'm with you, though. I would have taken the points, but it just really is painful when he misses that kick. Jack Fox had Jack Fox type game. He did have a touchback, which was rare for him. Usually he's kicking it inside the end zone. That one, he had a touchback, did have one inside the 20. And like we said, Todd Kennedy had one kick return for 13 yards, a punt return for 8 yards. I want to talk to you about that punt return because that was an interesting one. And then Khalif Raymond had a punt return for 15 yards. But I believe it's the one with Tom Kennedy returned. There was 2 returners back there.
Yes. That's the one where Tom Kennedy and Khalif Raymond almost fought for the ball there for a second. And then Tom Kennedy gets it and doesn't get much out of it. I was like, what are we doing, guys? I right away to you. I was like, why are they both back there? I mean, if there's some sort of play design, if there's something going on, you have to be 1,000% clear about who's receiving it, which way it's going. Mm-hmm. You cannot, in the NFL, returning punts, have a situation where there's 2 guys fighting for the ball. It was a miracle that he came down with it, really, when they're both right on top of each other like that. And it looked like he was the one coming over, like Khalif was the one in front of it. I would have to look at the replay. But I think Khalif was the one in front of it, and he kind of came over and took the ball. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know why we were getting cued on that. I was telling you that because we were like, well, were they setting up a trick play? Where, were they going to, do something, and it just fell apart. It wasn't right. So they just, went to receive. I'm not sure because Phipp let something slip on third. I don't know if he let something slip, but I just had something I noticed that he said, well, you could have 2 returners back there and for something. And I was like, well, I hardly see any teams run 2 returners. And then it just so happens this following game, we have 2 returners in the back. And so I was like, are they set, but you would think if they're setting up something, they would have been further apart and we'd, could have passed around there, or they run an end around play where, you run it one way and then Tom Kennedy's running the other way and they flip it over or something like that. But to both try to catch it just seems like either they didn't practice it enough. Right. Obviously the communication wasn't there. It was messed up.
Yeah. That was my point, is that they, that's got to be 100% clear. And special teams is, overall this year, special teams has been a disappointment. We're losing field position battles because of special teams. We have one of the best punters in the game. Jake Bates, has been serviceable. He's doing what's asked of him. He's missed a couple of them, but until Tom Kennedy had the game last week where, we got some fire on the kick return, we're just not doing enough. And our kickoff coverage has not been
I'd say
great.
Fox is doing enough for the punt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry.
Well, I was just saying the six kickoffs Fox in this game, average return of 27.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and Fox has been all right this season. I think, his overall average is different, but we're also punting from a little, like Campbell will punt from midfield occasionally because early on our defense, we could count on it more. And this last 4 to 5 week stretch, it's been, just giving up so many yards and it's been bad. So let's touch on the defense. The first thing I'll say is if your offense scores 34 points, you should win the game. That's my opinion. Going in, we're the high scoring offense. We raised our average with this game, and yet, we still lost. And at one point, we were down by 2 scores. It's shouldn't happen, and I don't feel like my feeling is that we have the players. I really feel like we have the players. To me, it's a scheme choice and we're just and an execution. We're just not doing what we need to do.
Agreed. Obviously it's hard with the secondary being out, but last year, how many injuries did we have last year? And we just still found a way to win with those guys, with those, I don't know if it's AG's play calling or just whatever we dialed up, but we have the players, but it does feel like almost everybody's just been a step off. Something is different. Something is off for almost every single person that we have. Aleem McNeil has been out there, and how often do we even talk about Aleem anymore? It's like he's just not, he's not been a factor. DJ Reader has his moments, not quite up there. Tyleek obviously is a rookie. He gets a free pass. Hutchinson, for all the pressures and everything that he's getting, does not really seem to get home too much. Obviously, he had a huge game this one, show you what he's capable of. But, even the linebackers, everybody that we can rely on outside of Jack Campbell, I think, is still having like an all-pro year. But all of these good players, all of our defense, it just seems like something is not gelling, something's not meshing, something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows up in the worst way in the biggest moments of the game.
Yeah. No, and it's 100%. It's like third down or fourth down, and we are not making the plays that we need to make, that we should make on this defense. Obviously, we got a huge turnover right away, right? I mean, that was unbelievable play by Hutch. He reads that screen, and Stafford still throws it to him. Hutch makes a great play, catches it. Unfortunately, he gets caught by Parkinson coming running all the way down the field, or else Hutch gets his first touchdown. Amazing play. He gets I think they changed it to a half a sack. I think him and Anzalone split the sack there. But Hutch played enough to win this game. My feeling is, and I don't, I am not. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying as we need to fire Shep or anything like that. I think Shep's a smart guy and he can make changes, and maybe we'll see some differences next season. But it's at this point, either teams have figured out the scheme pretty well and it feels like something's changed, like that they've figured out that where our weaknesses is in this defense and we're not doing enough to change it up and we're being stubborn, sticking with whatever we have going. My worry is that Shep is so loyal to his players that he's he's gonna just give those guys the snaps, those guys that he feels that deserves the snaps. And at some point you're gonna have to change it up and change some scheme. And I know they've tried to put Nowaski in. They've upped William, up Tyleek's snaps from when after Aleem initially came back. They'd really cut Tyleek's. He's been getting more snaps, which is going to be useful for next year because DJ Reader is probably not going to be back. And I don't know. It's frustrating, this defense. I just don't feel like we're getting any key stops, and it's why we can't get any consistent winning, because we're not getting enough stops. And the offense can't just keep winning. And I'm not saying the offense is perfect, but the offense was not the reason we lost that game yesterday.
Right. Offense fell flat. But like you already said, I mean, when you put up that many points, 34 points should be enough to win you the football game. We have to count on the defense for a handful of stops, and those stops didn't come.
Yep. And I will say that in the third quarter, when the offense didn't do it, I don't feel that it was necessarily the players on the field fault. I think that there was a call that was really bad by the refs, and I also think Dan Campbell got stubborn. He even said today that he wanted to get the run game going. And, he's trying to run and the problem is he kept running. Monty, we're switching over the offense apparently, but Monty was.
You're getting yourself going. You're getting worked up.
I know. Well, I am, because I'm really passionate about this game. Like, it got me really upset. But Monty was doing good. Like, he was having a lot more success, and then we never went back to him. In the second half, we never went back to Monty running the ball. And I don't know. I don't know why we do this. I'm not saying we go back to last year, because I know we want to get Gibbs as much running success as we can, but it feels to me like we can't control the second half running because we're not wearing them down enough in the first half with Monty just pounding the ball in there. But he was also successful, way more successful than Gibbs was, getting those yards in between the tackles.
You're right. It at least warranted, hey, let's give him another drive and let him run the ball, and that drive never came.
I know. Yeah, so that was incredibly frustrating. So is there anything before we move to the offense? Is there anything else
before we move, as you're already knee deep in the
Yeah, I
No,
know. Well,
I mean,
I didn't
Roy
want to.
Lopez had a big sack. Hutch had the sack. Hutch had the interception. Good game for him. The Rams went 2 for 9 on third down. The problem is that they then went 3 for 3 on fourth down and 4 for 6 in the red zone. And that was the difference, is them being able to, at will, no matter how far away they were on fourth down, throw the ball. The pressure wasn't getting home, and the corners were not, which obviously Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams are two really good receivers, are two really hard to cover. But we knew all week what we were going up against. We knew we've seen this offense, we've seen this team, we know what they're going to do. So the fact that that still happened was frustrating.
Yep. Not getting, enough help over on Puka's side was baffling, especially after Devontae goes out, right? And Devontae, it was very clear for me watching him play that he was not 100%.
Right.
He wasn't, and then obviously he left with, a hamstring injury, which really, I mean, I don't know how severe that thing's going to be, but man, that could really have some ramifications for them. Ramifications, you get it? For them later on in the, this season. So I don't know. It just, same thing. I guess you could say about the Lions. Like, we're only throwing to JMO and we're only throwing to Amon-Ra. Why can't they just guard those guys? Same thing. You start putting more people over there, they're going to start throwing to Colby Parkinson. They're going to start, throwing it to Tutu Atwell or whoever else that gets open. I mean, you could make that argument, but Puka was a majority of their offense. He caught over 50% of the yards that Stafford threw. Got it. Especially on the bit, anytime it came down to third or fourth down, that's who he was going to.
Right. Just like Amon-Ra for us, basically. He's just open.
Yep.
He's just finding ways to get open.
I guess the one thing I will say we kind of touched on a little bit is us not to be able to stop the run. And it has been apparent this whole season. Like I've talked about it many times. Backside runs were terrible. We're over pursuing and then leaving the backside open. But this game was even worse than that. We were just not clogging up the run lanes, and they were able to pretty much run at will. And if this team's constantly going to get in second and third and short, you're done for. You're just done. You got too many options at that point.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like watching it live, and I can see, like, you see where the hole's developing, you see where the play's developing, and we still have Anzalone and Campbell dropping back as this is happening. You can't spot them the first 3 or 4 yards, especially with these, quick. That might work on a bigger running back that's going to try to run you over. But these guys are smaller, shifty, they're fast, and they were breaking away. You can't spot them that much. And it was multiple times. Anzalone's on like the wrong side of the pile. He's like anticipating the wrong hole, the wrong spot where they're coming from. And I don't know if that was just, that's if that was the play call, that's what, what hole he's supposed to be looking at. I don't understand. Obviously, when you dissect it and you can see it coming up in slow motion, you can see like, okay, yeah, he's not anywhere close to where he needs to be to make that play. And it just kept happening.
Yep. And we weren't holding the backside. I saw Rocky Sin overplay, Derek Barnes would overplay, and just not hold the backside and force them to go up to where the guys are. And they were just able to get around the outside. And by the time we touch them, they're 4 yards on the field. And both Kyron Williams and Corum are not, they can move and they are shifty, but they're also strong as hell. And so they're going to fall forward. They're not just going to fall, unless Jack Campbell's hitting them like full force, they're going to fall forward on you. And they kept getting consistently through, 4 yards. And it was just before they're touched. And
right. So I was saying, we're spotting them. I mean, this was not a good game from Derek Barnes. It was not a good game from Davenport.
Yeah.
Most of the line, it just was like, what are we doing? I mean, even there was one play, it might have been the touchdown, where it was like DJ Reader, you could tell whatever gap he was supposed to be plugging up, he was plugging up that gap, but his back is to the play and he's pushing his lineman to try to almost make room for a linebacker, and the linebacker wasn't there. I don't know if that one was Campbell or Anzalone, but the linebacker was like in coverage, lost. And it was, I think both of those touchdowns from the goal line, he was untouched, right?
Yes.
I mean,
they were
almost
just simple.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they were, I would say, one was a walk-in. The other one, I wouldn't necessarily say was a walk-in, but minimal resistance, I will say.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, we had, how many times do we have to stop them when there were penalty after penalty down there? Man, when was that? Was that the first quarter or second quarter when it was like trying to find.
Pretty sure that was the second quarter.
Second quarter, at the beginning of the second quarter. They get down to the 3-yard line. Incomplete pass. He tried to hit Devontae Adams. Blake Corum goes up the middle and gets stopped by Hallett. Then Stafford tries to throw it again from the 1, and that's when they called a hold on Anzalone. Then they try to throw it again, and pass interference on DJ Reed, but it was offset by holding on the offense. And that's when he ran in. You know, at that point, I guess they're just gassed. How many times can you stop him from within the 5? But
Yep. No, it was poor showing by the defense all around, and it has been for a while. I don't think it's not fixable, and I'm not one here that thought, I don't know. I think some of it's scheme and what we're gonna do with the pass rush about getting quarterbacks off their spot. You cannot expect these guys in the secondary to guard their guys for 3.5 seconds. It's just you cannot consistently do it. It's okay once in a while, but you cannot consistently ask these guys to run around and guard guys for 3.5 seconds in man coverage. And it's hard to right now to, as you know, we're now Kirby and Brian. You expect, a big play from each of those guys a game. Kirby, getting picks, we're missing that. He got, I don't know if he had 3 or 4 before he's been out, but we've had like 1 interception from the safety position since then. I think Thomas Harper's gotten 1. It's stealing those possessions. Some of these games we've only need to steal like 1 extra possession away from the offense. And so it's hard to, put it into context, what we're missing with Kirby, but obviously we're missing something back there. And then, like I said, I was not impressed with Hallett at all. And just, I know he had a lot of tackles, but that just because their running back kept getting to the second level. So we're asking our safeties to come up and make those plays. And having, Jack and, Hallett having to make so many tackles is not, it's great that Jack's making plays, but you're hoping that our line is able to stop and get some of those tackles before they get up there into that, second, third level.
right. You're hoping that we're collapsing a little bit and that we're making it harder for them and getting some tackles for a loss. But I mean,
right.
Did we? We had 1 tackle for a loss in this game, and it was a sack by Lopez.
Yeah, because the second sack was basically at the line of scrimmage.
Right. They didn't lose any yards.
Yeah. And I get that this defense is set up for the linebackers. That's how they set it up. And that's one of the reasons why Jack Campbell gets so many tackles, and a lot of times they are right at the line of scrimmage. They haven't been recently, or we've been really, very leaky, but we ask our defensive line to take up multiple, offensive linemen so that, that our linebackers could shoot the gaps and make plays. It's just not working. So we're gonna obviously need to make some changes, like at all levels of this defense. It's been, I have faith that Shep can do it, but he's got to show that he can do it. I need to see some improvements in the next few weeks, but we'll see. We're going to have to win these next 3 to get in the playoffs. So hopefully those changes come quick. Anything else on the defense that you want to talk about?
One last thing. Did you notice, or what were your thoughts when we came out of the half? Anzalone was not out there. And I did not realize at the time, but then I saw, I think maybe Jeremy or somebody had posted that Hutch and Anzalone both took that first play off coming out of the half. Did you notice, or like what? Okay. I noticed that Anzalone wasn't out there, but I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then, he was right back out. Mm-hmm. I don't understand what package or what kind of scheme that was. Hutch played 57 of the 72 snaps. That was as a Pro Football Focus yesterday, so those numbers could sway a little bit, but Hutch had a lower percentage of snaps than he usually does, and Anzalone also was a little bit lower than normal. So I don't know what kind of package or whatever they were trying. I'd have to dive in deep a little more. I just didn't know if you noticed, but clearly it wasn't really working that often.
No. Yeah. All right. Let's move to the offense. Almost 400 yards of offense. Like I said, plenty of, firepower, plenty of points to win this game. 0 turnovers, which we've been really good at not giving the ball away this year. Like, I don't know how many fumbles, like maybe Monty's fumble against the Vikings, obviously was the most critical one of the season. Goff has not given it up very much in critical situations. And we only took 1 sack in this game. And against that defensive line, that's really good. I mean, you tell me this going in, I'm really happy. I'm like, okay, no turnovers, 1 sack. Okay, we're doing, I'm okay with all that.
If you look at this summary, you're like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good. We probably won this game pretty nice, huh? Like,
Yeah.
man,
No. Yeah. 5 for 14 on 3rd down. You'd like that to be a little bit better, but it's approved by 2 for 2 on 4th down. So that gets us at 50% on 3rd down. We finally converted some 4th downs, right? We've been like, 0 for our last 7, which, you combine that with how often we're letting other teams get 4th down. You can see why we're winning 1, losing 1, winning 1, losing 1. We were 3 4 in the red zone, which, obviously you want to be 4 for 4, but I'll take, 3 for 4 is not bad. Played well. I tell you, I was telling my boys that my probably, I know it's recency bias because we just saw it, but one of my favorite plays of the season was where Goff like stepped up in the pocket and then floated that ball to Amon Ra for that huge gain. I just like that so on so many levels because that's like like when you say you need a mobile quarterback. Well, that's what when you're asking for a pocket passer, that's what the mobility you're asking for. Just slide around, create time, and man, you don't see Goff throw balls like that, like just floater balls like that very often. I know it's dangerous to do that over the middle, but he just floated that perfectly. And Amon Ra did not catch that cleanly right away. Like he double clutched that. Like if he'd have dropped that, oh my God, that would have been devastating. But yeah, you know, luckily there was no one else around him to not jar that ball loose upon first contact. And, what do you take that for like 50 yards or something like that?
he
That
has a
was an amazing
52-yard
play.
pickup, and that was
Yeah.
the first play out of when we gave up that touchdown. So we give them the
Mhm.
lead 10-14, and then we answer back right away. And you're right, that was
Yep.
a really nice play. Goff stepped up, kind of maneuvered in the pocket. The thing always with Goff, though, is even some of these awesome catches and awesome plays, these balls are ducks, man. Like they're
Yeah.
not tight spirals getting there. Obviously, this one, he had an excuse that he was stepping up. He was like off balance and everything. But that's why Amon Ra kind of juggled a little bit too, is it did not come in cleanly.
No. Well, it came in like, especially for a ball over the middle like that, generally they're not coming in at that angle. Like they're not
Right,
floated
right.
like high like that, Like a deep ball, you expect it to come in at that angle really high and then, a sharp drop or whatever. But those were that was just like, and it is a duck. But you see so many passes of Goff's like that. He doesn't throw a tight spiral. I
Right,
mean, he's
right.
accurate. He's accurate as heck. And you could say, well, how could he be accurate? He threw so many into the ground. Those were on. He threw those a lot of those into the ground on purpose. He's not going to take a sack, and he was just, he's trying to stay ahead of the sticks, which I'm okay with. There's a few times that he could hold the ball longer, but yesterday, I thought Goff played one of his best games of the season, to be honest with you. I really thought that he played it really well.
Yes, and that's kind of how I expected it to go, being in LA
Mm.
against the Rams, really wanting to get this game.
Yep.
Obviously because of the team that it was, but also where our season hangs. So I
Yeah.
expected Goff to show up, and I think he did a great job. Just was not enough there in the end.
Yep. It wasn't. And, we could get that to that third quarter, right? So third quarter, we come out like we run. Oh, it's like I gotta look at this so I can get this. I want to get this right. So
Well,
third
the first
quarter,
drive, it was the hold that killed the drive.
yes. Well, that and then so yeah, they do a 5 yard run, then they do then they get it's first it would be second and 5. They get the 10 yard, so it goes to second and 15, and then we run again. Um, Dan Campbell said today that he should have passed in that situation, and that's the type of call that I'm talking about. Like we were able to pass the ball consistently. Dan Campbell said that he wanted to get the run game going, and I get that, but second and 15 maybe is not the best time you get the run game going on a defense that maybe is undisciplined. Yeah, that would be a fine because they're maybe they're setting up, but the Rams are a really disciplined team, and they're not going to be surprised by that, especially with the Lions. They know that we're going to do stuff like that. We're not catching anybody by surprise on 3rd and 6 and running or anything like that. They know that. They're prepared for that now.
I don't hate just the fact that we ran it on 2nd and 15. if we didn't already, that was Gibbs' third straight run on the drive. He's already ran twice. Obviously, he's a little bit gassed. He's not, he's out there because he's a home run hitter, right? And that's not to say that he was too tired that he wouldn't have been able to do it. But, I mean, I think that's the threat that you have on 2nd and 15 when they're expecting that it's going to be a pass, that, you can surprise them with a run. When you've already done it the last 2 times, I don't remember the formation on that one, but I don't think it was necessarily like any sort of surprise that we were running.
It was a shotgun formation.
Okay. But then, we get a handful of yards, and then on 3rd down, it's 3rd and 9, and we're not able to get anything out of it. And that was the worst thing because then, we held them to a field goal. I think it's another thing we texted. We held them to a field goal. We're like, we just need to get a decent drive together right now. And then this is where it all unraveled because we don't get it. We give the ball back to them. The next drive is when they have the touchdown that, was highly controversial, and people are still talking about that now. The refs ruling that. I don't know if you want to get in that now or if we're going to save a spot for the refs later, but
we could talk about that because it's good. I'm going to talk about them in the next.
Leads into the next drive too.
Drive. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So I mean,
that call was ridiculous.
Right.
So
right.
Yes, man. There's so many people I've been, on Twitterverse or social media or whatever, like Lions fans always complain about the refs at the game. And, a lot of fans will tend to go to that. But the thing is that like, this was so ridiculous. And honestly, like, okay, so my argument isn't that like, oh, it ultimately changed. It was going to be a touchdown or not. Although I think there is something to be said that whether he controlled that ball or not at any point. Because it seems like when he has full control of the ball, his back's out of bounds. Because
right.
if you're saying, okay, so if you're saying there's all different ways you could interpret this. Okay, if you're saying it's a clean catch, then he should be down at the 1, like initially a clean catch because he's, contacted and he's down at the 1. What they're saying is that he did not clean catch it, that he lost control, and somehow the ball never touched the ground. He was able to get control, and by the time he got control, he was in the end zone. But if you watch it, the ball is not cleanly in his possession with his back on it's still shifting when his back is out of bounds. So to me, there's only 2 calls that you could make. Complete on the 1-yard line. They're saying he caught it cleanly, or 2, it's an incomplete catch. Those are the 2 calls that you could make. I think that you could make logically with but somehow we picked the 3rd choice, which is a touchdown, and I know you could be guilty of like doing things like, I know on Twitter, like the thing that went crazy on Twitter, it's all, 5,000 views, just is where you put the screenshot, like, how is this a touchdown? And I know that gets clicked, and sometimes screenshots can be very misleading, but it's crazy. Like his knee is clearly down at the 1, and I come up with the conclusion that it's a touchdown is beyond me. I don't know how that could be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought the reason that they were looking at it so long is because they were going to overturn that it wasn't a catch. And
yes.
When you got the announcers talking about it, and they've got whoever, whatever ref officiating.
Dean Blandino was in there.
Dean Blandino was the one in there. Yeah. When they've got them talking about it too, to me, it clearly looked like it hit the ground. Even if you could say, well, maybe his hand was in there, how his hand was in there, maybe that's what they're looking at. They can't determine. Never when I was watching did I think that they were going to rule it a touchdown. And I just, even afterward, I don't understand. I mean, like you already said, he's a yard short at least when he gets that ball. And I mean, that's why I post on Twitter too. I just don't understand because they call it a touchdown. And then afterward, same as the safety thing. It's like Dean Blandino says, no, it's not a touchdown, that they could be looking that maybe it's not even a catch. Then they rule it a touchdown, and then NFL calls Dean Blandino and says, you need to get back on there and tell them why. Tell them that we were right. Don't make us look bad. So then Dean Blandino has to get back on there and said the reason it's a touchdown is that they ruled that he did not get possession of the ball until he was already in the end zone. So when he first hit the ground initially, he did not have possession of the ball. Okay, well, it hit the ground. What do you mean? How do you add that up? What did the ball bounce off of then if he didn't have possession of the ball yet? And then you're right. When he does have possession, he's already clear out of bounds. So you're going to say that, the second where he was rolling, sliding towards the end zone is when he actually had the ball. And I know, everyone, this is another one where it's like everybody seems to be on the Lions side where this was crap. Everyone that watches the play, everyone sees it. That's, it's obvious that it was crap. I haven't heard the refs, reason for it.
They didn't release the pool report.
Exactly. Not that it matters anyway. But, at the same time, for the Rams, because even the Rams fans, are like, yeah, we probably got away with one there. But, we had just given up. They were throwing it deep this whole drive, and they were hitting the Devontae Adams. They were doing it. They were, they were picking us apart. And then, if it was a catch, if they ruled a catch from the 1 yard line, then we're back in a situation 1st and goal from the 1, and we've got to stop them 4 times. So I know that maybe in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't change anything, but this is just another one of those things where we can look back, and it's unfortunate that we have so many of these that we can make entire episodes about this. And we have.
Yeah.
And, now we just have more to add to the list after this year of times we've been screwed by the refs and times where it's blatantly obvious that it should go one way and it doesn't go our way.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. It's like the egregiousness of it for me is what's baffling. Like that's what makes me mad. But I will tell you, it's there was a kickoff after that. And then it's us taking a deep shot to JMO, right? And 9 times out of 10, Lions get flagged for pass interference on that. Like, they had a guy had a handful of jersey. He also tripped him up, too. And JMO is still running. If they don't trip him up, like he's running full speed, and that's why I feel like, he doesn't come down with the ball. Even Tom Brady goes and he's tripped up there. Like he didn't say like touch before the ball, but that's the only time he could contact him was before. That's what led him to reach for the ball the way he did because he was tripped up. And that was a huge, that momentum switch. Because then, like, what we ended up, we ended up, is that the sack? That was when they got the sack, right?
So
right
we didn't get that,
so,
which was one thing. But then the sack was just brutal. And then it's 3rd and 22, and then we have an incomplete pass, and we just, another real quick, 3 and out, and give the ball right back to them. Where they drive down and score it again.
And then they have 2 plays and they score.
Yep.
They, 50 yards.
That was the big swing right there after they ruled that touchdown. Then the next drive for us, 3 straight passes that don't go our way. And that was the one where, Jack Fox has to punt it from our 10-yard line, but that punt only goes 40 yards. And then they get to fair catch at the 50.
Yep. No, it was that 3rd quarter, man. And that reminds me of like the Ben Johnson, like that. Where we were we had like a terrible 3rd quarter for basically a whole season.
Right.
It just felt like that, reminders of that. But it was, man, to be up by, basically up by 10 at one point, 24-14. I know they scored a field goal right before halftime, so it was 24-17. And then to be down by 10 by the end of the 3rd quarter, that just hurt so bad. But my feeling is that like that JMO, do you feel that was pass interference? You didn't really react to what I said, so
I didn't really. Not as bad as you thought it was. It was close. He definitely trips him up. He definitely is holding his jersey, and he kind of gets his arm a little bit. But I think what he's got in his favor is that he's turned looking for the ball, and then you can always get by with the whole incidental contact. Maybe you did it on purpose. We can't tell how you got tripped up. JMO also had a play at the ball. He couldn't feel it cleanly because he had somebody all over him. Yep. But that's one of those things you're going to let him play. You're going to let him play. But like when JMO got interfered with really bad in the end zone, it was when they're draped all over him. He's hanging on him. And then the safety that was holding him, or the corner that was holding him, actually has looked at the ball and trying to make a play on it. But then the safety is the one that has no idea where the ball's at. So he almost just boxes him out and falls back and hits him. Like, but they have eyes on all of that. Why are you not making that call? And then instead, they're like, well, let's get them back. Then they call pass interference on a play on Amon-Ra where the ball was not catchable. That was a terrible call, too. It evened out in the end, but what are you doing? That's not the way this works.
It shouldn't have got to the Amon-Ra play, and the people are like, oh, that wasn't a penalty. We got you back there. Well, no, they just totally forget about the JMO. Because my Ring camera that, records everything that's going on in the basement, I should release that video of me screaming at the TV because that JMO foul. By that time, I was fed up with the refs at that game, and I was screaming. And don't think I swore that time, but I was very, very animated, and I haven't been that animated in a negative way in front of the boys in a long time. But because that tends to egg them on, and then they get really upset, and then they're complaining about every call, and I don't like being that way. But I was just tired of it. It was so egregious of a foul. And you could say, well, that ball was uncatchable. I've seen way further balls thrown out of the end zone that they've ruled pass interference, even on the Lions that they should have ruled pass interference on that. It wasn't so far out of bounds that JMO wouldn't have had a shot at that ball had the safety the safety just jumps and doesn't even know where the ball's at. He's not even looking at the ball and just
He's
JMO
not playing the
gets
ball at all.
smoked.
He's just hitting JMO.
Right. And I was just fed up with that. I was so mad at that. That put me over the edge. That play. That was the play that put me over the edge for the day because I was just really upset by that point.
Right. Yeah, that one was really bad. And then it almost made it worse. Like, we were throwing the ball so much from within the 5. But, I mean, then the throw to Amon-Ra where they decide to throw a flag. It's like, you're going to throw a flag for that, but you're not going to throw one for the, countless other times where you've had these close calls. Stupid.
It was, again, Lions, other than that penalty that you just mentioned, they don't get flagged at all for, through a whole game. And, we did with the Kansas City game, them playing 0 penalties until the very end. Like, it can't happen. I don't understand how these teams could play perfect games against us. I just don't understand how that can consistently happen. It's ridiculous to me.
There's a page on Twitter that's just completely dedicated to like the officiating crews that are going to be out. And I didn't see this one ahead of time. Obviously, with everything happening, I saw it afterward. But something like, I forget, because it was something along the lines of like, this officiating crew is like 70% leaning towards whatever the home team is. And then it was like after the report or whatever after is like, this is the cleanest game that any one team has had since the Chiefs, when the Chiefs played the Lions earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, that checks out.
Yeah, exactly. Regardless of all of that, I mean, that could have made a difference. The play that I feel there was a pass interference on JMO, definitely, if that would have been called, it definitely changes what happens in that third quarter because then they don't get the sack afterwards. They don't get the short field. We possibly go in and score. I mean, that changes the whole dynamic of that game. If that either connects, JMO catches that, or they call pass interference. And so that was like, to me, if you're going to boil it down to like the key play in the game, to me, that's it. That play right there. If that connects or we get up in the field, that totally changes the dynamic of that game. And I don't know if we guaranteed that we win, but it doesn't allow the short field for them, and we might go on and score. So it might be like a 10 to 14 point switch in that game, which would have been enough for us to win.
Right. I mean, they saw how it worked with Amon-Ra when we hit that big play to Amon-Ra, to get the momentum back and drive down. And that's what they were trying to do here with JMO. And, they had the look. It just didn't turn out. I don't know if we said the numbers already, but Amon-Ra, 13 catches, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns. JMO had 7 catches, 134 yards, and a touchdown. That's an outstanding game by your top 2 receivers. I mean, you couldn't ask for much more than that. It was the run game that disappointed. Jahmyr Gibbs, 13 carries, 38 yards. Demo, 7 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. And then Gibbs also only 4 catches for 20 yards. So, they really shut out Gibbs effectively. And I don't know if that was just the play calling or them just doing a great job of selling out to make sure that Gibbs did not destroy the game for them.
Yeah, I think that they pretty much made it, Gibbs is not going to beat us in this game. That's why Amon-Ra and JMO had such a good game. I will say that, something that we'll probably talk about a lot this offseason about whether Dan Campbell needs to continue making, play calls next year or whatever. What's going to happen with that? That'll be a good storyline for the offseason. I will say that ever since Dan Campbell has taken over, JMO's been on fire. He's unlocked JMO. And so whatever he's doing, they need to keep that up next year. I mean, they need to just keep that ball rolling. And, the rest, we did all this without Laporta, without really any threat at tight end, and it's so critical for us on third down. The Laporta injury is just it's affecting us more than I really anticipated, to be honest with you.
Right? I mean, we're moving the ball through the air, but not having that extra threat hurts. And Laporta can block. You don't know if he's blocking or going out for a pass, and he's got the threat
Right.
of doing both.
Yep.
It's just a different level that no one else can bring.
Right. And we can't measure what he would provide for Gibbs or Monty in the run game. You know, we obviously know what he was providing on third down relief and just, another target for Goff and just some unpredictability. Like you said, is Laporta going to stay in? Is he going to slip out? And even Brock Wright, to an extent, was always good for like one play a game where he would just slip out and just be wide open because everybody, they were guarding everybody else. And, Brock Wright's obviously injured too. So that it's just, it's affected more than I really anticipated when he went down. However, again, that's not the reason why we lost this game. I mean, outside of the third quarter, we could have done better offensively to set up our defense for some more success. But when we score 34 points, we shouldn't be losing that game, let alone, by a touchdown. I just don't feel like you should ever blame the offense in that case.
Right? Tough loss. At the same time, if you had your crystal ball before the season started and you said, you know what, this last game against the Rams, we're going to go to LA, we're going to lose 34-41. I think we all could have lived with that. It's the manner in that it happened and that it's, how the rest of the season has played out and how bad we needed that one.
Right.
When the season's over, I don't think we're going to look at this one and say, this is the one that got away. This is the one that really did us in. There's several other losses before this that were way worse.
Yep. I got some talking points when we get to final thoughts. Before we do that, the roar alert. Jacob, you said Hutch is going to make an impact. Obviously, it was felt right away with his interception. I wish he could have scored on that, and then he got, I think it's a half sack is what it ended up being, but, he obviously got some pressure on Stafford there. I thought Jameer Gibbs was going to have a big day in the passing game. That obviously did not happen. I was also wrong on the 6-minute plus drive. Got to 5:40, so I was like 20 seconds off. We should have ran that clock a little bit longer. You said Jared Goff was going to throw for more than 250. He is at 338. So obviously you hit on that. So
I went
good
too
job
modest
by you on those. Let's talk a little bit about the playoff odds. They fall to 34%. We're going to need the Bears or the Packers to go 1-2 in their last three, and we need to win all three. So we have not had. When's the last time that we won back-to-back games? It was
September.
Cleveland. We won
and
Baltimore,
Cincinnati.
Cleveland, and Cincinnati. So
we won 4 in a row.
So 4 in a row. Then, but since that point, we have not won back-to-back games. It's been just win-loss, 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 and so. It's nice that we're not putting any losing streaks together, but you cannot, obviously we can't make the playoffs if we keep doing the win-loss thing. So we need to go on a little streak right now. Pittsburgh, I think, is definitely winnable this weekend. Minnesota has their Jekyll and Hyde. I know that they just beat the Cowboys, and JJ McCarthy looked good yesterday, and then they won 31-0 the week before. So we'll see what kind of Minnesota team that we get. I know Jonathan Grenard just went down for he elected for shoulder surgery, so he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So that's definitely in favor of the Lions because he's a very good defender for them.
It's going to be one of those interesting games too, though, because you got the Steelers Sunday at 4:25, and then short week we got the Vikings. We go to Minnesota on Thursday. Which luckily the Vikings are traveling the Sunday before. They're in New York, I think. So it's not like they don't have the travel thing to worry about either, but they're going home. And, a lot of weird things happen on these short Thursday games, and we can't let that be one of them.
Yep. No. Well, the weird thing is that maybe we get back-to-back wins because that's been strange for over 10 weeks. So that would be the weird thing. We win this weekend, and then
if we want to sniff the playoffs, it's got to be back-to-back-to-back. We got to string these together.
And then what that sets up. If Chicago loses one of these next two, you could be looking at a win. Winner. It's the first playoff game would start week 18 for us. because it could be win or go home against Chicago.
I
Which
mean, the
and then
first
that could
playoff
be
game needs to
maybe they
start right now, though. Like losing's not an option anymore.
sure
It's over. So
100%. You're right. You're right. 100%. Yeah. So like when you're talking about the playoffs, it's like talking about you got to win these three, and then you'd have to win 3 playoff games, and then the Super Bowl. So we have to go from not winning back to back games since week 5 to all of a sudden we got to win 7 straight if we want to win the Super Bowl. Let me ask you, Jacob. I've seen a lot of people online. I think it's just frustration. Like, hey, we should just tank the rest of the year. Like, why are we doing this? Are you in that boat? Is there any part of you that agrees with that sentiment?
what would you possibly tank for right now at this point?
Yeah.
Because you want to pick, 16th in the draft? What are you tanking for?
Yeah.
What do you possibly have to gain by just giving in right now? I mean, we'll put a little, like, this is like going for it on 4th down, right? Like we just, we want our offense to have the ball at the end of the game. Even when we've got the lead in a close game, when it's 4th down, we seem to go for it. This is one of those things where we're going to go for it. We don't know any other way. We absolutely are not going to kick the ball away and just let whatever happens and just take a loss. And I I can't picture Dan Campbell tanking at anything. There's just no. Amon Ra, can you picture going to Amon Ra and saying we're just going to go easy and we're going to tank? What are you even talking about?
We're going to hold you out of this game.
No, I have not seen that. Thank God, because there's nothing to tank for in the final couple weeks of the season. You can't even call it tanking anymore.
Yeah. Well, there's people like, when losing starts happening, then all the negativity come out. And I've seen more and more anti-Brad Holmes and even
It's
some
every week.
Dan Campbell stuff coming out. And,
Oh, yeah.
And it's after every loss, but it's getting louder because, the results this year are not what we wanted them to be. Not what people expected going in, but everyone's acting like we should have saw this a mile ago. And the whole we're good, like I'm tired of that. Like Brad Holmes, we're good. That narrative that people just keep going back to. Um, I, I, I'm not saying that I don't think that these Dan Campbell or Brad Holmes are perfect, and you'll never hear me say that. I've argued with stuff that I think that they should have done differently, but to also flip to the side and say they don't deserve to have a job, or to argue with saying that they haven't done anything is just people being mad and frustrated with the teams not doing as well as they should, as they expected them to do. And that's frustrating to me as a Lions fan, a longtime Lions fan, because I'm very grateful for what we have. My expectations are higher, and I want to win, and I think that they could do better, and they, are going to have to make some tough decisions this offseason. And I think that this offseason is going to be ripe for a lot of discussion because we have a lot of people that are, going to be up on their contract, whether they're going to resign. Are we going to go outside the organization? How are we going to draft this year? This is going to be a very interesting offseason that we have coming up. Who are we going to extend? Especially with the Branch injury, like all that. There's going to be a lot of stuff to discuss the pros and cons of. And, going in, I'm okay with like expectations being a little bit lower going into next year because I like being, like going in and like having some, and winning. Like when the chips are down and you think you're going to be out, like that's super exciting for me. Like if we had to beat the Rams, that's what I felt like this weekend for me. Like I thought we could win, but I was not expecting us to win. But had we win and win, I would have felt really, really good. And that's part of the reason why I left that game feeling so defeated because we were up by 10 going in. I felt like similar to the Rams game, like, all right, I want to make this game competitive. I think that, we could win, but the Rams are a really good team. So like I didn't want to discount that either.
I mean, right. It's every single loss. Doesn't matter, the Eagles, the Packers, the Rams, the Vikings should be the worst of them, or the Chiefs looking at it now. But every loss we have to answer these questions. But I mean, I like the expectations being high. I do think that it lessens the blow and people are not as mad when the expectations are low. And I'll make a little pharmacy reference for you here, but like, if they drop off their prescription and you tell them your prescription's going to be ready in 30 minutes, if you get it ready in 15 minutes, everybody's pretty happy. Like, man, that wasn't so bad. That's really nice. If you tell them their prescription will be ready in a minute or two and it takes 15 minutes, they're writing corporate and they're mad and complaining. It still took the same 15 minutes, but it's the perception and everything that you've got.
Yeah.
And that's, the way the team works. And that's why people are mad, is because of how the season went last year. We expected to perform even better. We had we had the DJ Reed signing. We had we had a lot to be excited about this year. And it's not that the season is over yet, but I mean, here we are, week 16 going into this week. We still have the number 1 offense, but our defense is now 23rd, and we're in the middle of the pack in the NFC North. And the new standard of Lions football is that that's just not good enough. So I do think, the team's going to have to look a little bit different next year. I don't know if Brad Holmes, is a little more conservative with the draft. It'd be interesting to see what their strategy is there. Do we keep Johnny Morton? There's a lot of interesting topics in the offseason, but I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet.
No, I'm not either. To me, you keep winning and you try to get in the dance because you never know what's going to happen. I know that the Chiefs got knocked out, but Patrick Mahomes is out. But you could have another injury that could totally change the dynamic of the playoffs. The Micah Parsons thing obviously changed the dynamic. That's gonna really change that team because a lot of what they did on defense was predicated on getting pressure on that quarterback quickly, and they could sit back in that shell defense and keep everything in front of them. That is not going to be as easy for them anymore. And who's going to trip Saquon Barkley in the playoffs?
Yeah.
That guy's out, but it's just, I want to get in the dance because you never know what's going to happen. And I know this is the homer in me, the homer Lions fan, but I still feel like we could win every game no matter who we're playing. Feel that we could do that. Our offense is definitely good enough and just need to make a couple plays on defense and we could win those games. It just could happen. And I'm never going to be a guy that wants to tank or, and the people that are sitting on we got to get rid of Goff, he's some sort of problem. No, Goff's the reason why this offense is as good as it is. These people that want these wholesale changes with either Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, Jared Goff are insane to me because it is so much easier to get worse than it is to get better at that position. You're not going to go and just upgrade. Look what happened at offensive defensive coordinator. You're going to sit there and say that, you see the changes made there. And, we have obviously offensive coordinator. We already had to make some changes during the middle of the season. It's very easy to get worse at some of these positions than to get better.
Agreed.
Yep. All right, man. Well, before we go, I wanted to talk to you about the Pistons game I went to on Friday.
Yes.
So this is very unlike me, but my oldest was out of town, and so my wife was going to take him somewhere. So she had to go an hour away. So I basically had the evening to myself. Wasn't sure if my youngest was going to go. He came downstairs, and I said, "You could either go with mom and visit grandma, grandpa, or I might go to a Pistons game." And so he wanted to go to the Pistons game. And so I had to work till 5. It takes me, probably an hour and 15 to get up there. We hit an accident. I didn't get an accident, but we hit an accident on 94 up there. We literally parked at 6:50 or 6:45 and the game starts, at 7. I didn't have tickets yet. I waited till I got all the way up there to get tickets.
Oh.
And so I was because there were so many for sale, and I was willing to sit in the mid section because they had tickets for $25 a piece up there, and you could sit front row mid section, and I like those seats. I mean, they're definitely not, you're not right on top of the players, but you could see everything really good, and for $25 a piece. But I got all the way up there. I looked last second, and there was row 3 seats in section 118, which is kind of a corner down low, but row 3. So it wasn't 3 rows out the floor, but it's 3 rows back in the corner. We were still relatively close or whatever, and bought those tickets. Got it for $85 a piece, which
Not
I'm
bad.
happy for, to get 3 rows off there. And we were right on an aisle. Bradley, I let him sit next to the rail. He could see perfectly. It didn't matter if anyone was in front of him, sit, because we were sitting diagonal. He could see.
I was
going to
ask,
really
when you
good.
first got there, were you concerned oh man, the basket might be kind of in the way? Were you concerned
Well,
when
we
you
were
first...
off to the side. we were off to the side, so I wasn't concerned about that. I always get concerned like if there's people going to be walking in front of you, because like I hate that so much.
Right.
But these were like great seats because like they didn't have to. No one could like walk in front of you and block anything. And so we get the seats. Bradley's ecstatic. I took some pictures. I sent you one right away.
Right.
And I'm like, and I don't think that picture showed how real. I thought it looked further away than what
It
we
never
really
does
were.
it justice. Yeah.
But we were like on the Pistons bench side too. So like their bench was really close to us, so we could see, all the players really up close. And Bradley's just struck by how tall these guys are and
Right.
just like how they look different like up close, and which was cool. And this was probably the closest I've ever sat in a basketball game too, which was neat for me. Just on top of that, but just when you go with your kids, Jacob, you know how it is as a dad. You're living through them at that point. You're seeing everything through their eyes, and like especially when I got tickets last second, like I was just like ecstatic that it all, we got in, we made tip off. Like I'm like you, I usually get to the games like, as soon as they open the door. So like for me to getting there, Bradley loved it. We ran from the parking lot all the way to the door. It was like, I don't know. It said a 10-minute walk, so we probably made it in like 7 minutes or something by running. And we get up there. Bradley's like, "This was fun," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it's fun." It's freaking like 15 degrees. I haven't run that long in a while, so I was just ran it. But we got there, it was cool, and then we get down there, and Bradley's like, I'm like, we're in row 3. And he's like, row 3, and so like he just keeps going down, and you could see him getting super excited, and he's like, we get there, and he's like, Dad, thank you so much. He was just super excited. The very first break that they have, they're giving away free pizza, and one of the hype squad or whatever walked right up the wow, I said Bradley yelled down at him and he yelled at the guy. The guy gave him free pizza. So then Bradley got free pizza. And then right after that, the camera guy came by and Bradley, my youngest is not shy. Like my oldest would not not yell out. Bradley, I don't have to worry about. He will just, he doesn't get embarrassed by that stuff. So he gets the camera guy up and it was really cool because I had the camera guy on him. So I knew he was going to be on the screen. That's why I got that good video
Right.
because I knew it was coming. Like sometimes you don't know it's coming, but this time I did. And so I was able to record it. And Bradley, like I've watched that video, I don't know, 25 times since I've recorded it. And he just looks so happy
Right.
in the video. He just looks
That was
ecstatic
like the
and
greatest
it just
moment.
makes me feel so good.
When you sent it to me and I seen the orange box and everything too, I was like, oh man, he won free pizza too?
I know.
That's awesome.
It was just so cool, like to get a win like that as a dad. Like it just, and
how did Preston feel about
I rarely, what?
How did Preston feel about it? Missing out on the free pizza.
So Preston was gone the whole weekend. And so he gets home and Bradley tells him, and then Preston's first reaction was to me, he goes, so I get to go to another game, right? Just you and you. So like that's his first thing. Like I want him to be more excited for Bradley, but really, it's a younger brother. He's a little jealous.
Right.
And it's just the way it went. But he was not like a jerk about it. But his immediate thought, just like any 14-year-old, goes to immediately like, what am I going to get out of it? And so I told, because I already owed him a Pistons game because I got free Red Wings tickets from before. So I told him, I was like, well, we can go to 2 Pistons games. He's like, well, Bradley went to a Red Wings and Pistons game. I said, well, Red Wings games are just more expensive. I said, if you want to go to a different sport, I'll just take you to a Tiger game, just you and me over the summer. And he's like, okay, I'm cool with that. So we'll, because you can go, Red Wings games are really expensive, at least when I look for tickets. Pistons games, depending on the game, you can get for like, like I said, $25 a piece, which to me is well worth going up there for that, especially the way they're playing lately.
Yeah, I missed my chance for the Michigan Wolverines tickets because we went to the Michigan football game. We leave early at the Michigan football game, and we end up walking out behind the Michigan basketball team. So then, of course, JJ and Milo were all about Michigan basketball just because the guys were right in front of us. And I looked for tickets, and I was like on the fence about it. Michigan basketball has just been lighting it up. They've been playing so well that now tickets are impossible. Like you'd be like, it'd be cheaper to go to the Pistons game. I saw one like for the Michigan versus Michigan State. Somebody's trying to sell tickets for like $600 or $700.
Wow,
insanity for a college basketball game. But
yeah, but Michigan's, well, depending on the poll you look at, they're either 1 or 2, and Michigan State's, last I looked, they were top 10. So you're talking like a top,
really good matchup.
obviously outside of the rivalry, but you're talking a top game beyond that.
For sure.
The thing about Michigan is that not only are they winning, they're winning by like 30 or 40 each time. It's insane. Now, Maryland was a little closer game, the last game that they played. But before that, it was like 30, 30, 40, 28. It was insane.
Right. It felt like Maryland just couldn't miss. And, the Maryland's at home, which, plays a huge factor in college sports like that. And, I was watching that one with the boys. Like, I don't know, guys. I mean, we got a tough team, but this is not going to be easy. And then, sure enough, just pulled away from them in the second half.
Yep. Yeah, it was awesome.
Real quick, if you got nothing else, I watched an 80s movie. So I don't know if you're going to.
Oh, really? Okay, what'd you watch?
I watched The Terminator. So
the original. Okay.
The original Terminator. Yes.
Yeah.
I really liked The Terminator. So the only, I told you that I feel like I've seen these before and like have mixed them together. The only thing I really remember is just the fact that whatever reason they come out there naked. Like when they first time travel, they're naked. That's the only part I remember. And I don't know if that happens in the other movies because obviously I haven't, watched the other ones. Yep. But no, it was really good. It was hilarious how bad some of the CGI and stuff was.
Mm-hmm.
The scene where Arnold's eye is messed up, so he's got to like cut it out.
Yeah.
The mask and just the way he looks and, hilarious. But I mean, it, did not. I go into every movie with an open mind. So I'm not expecting, and I know it was made in the 80s. I'm not expecting any kind of, super hyper believable explosions and stuff. But then when he's the cyborg, like his skin's melted off and they're still running away from the robot, just so choppy looking and everything.
Yeah, that's the stop motion there. That's how they did that with stop motion. You would think that James Cameron, like, because the part, it's after he comes out from, the semi burning up and it's just maybe a 6 seconds, of him running. You would think that they would just edit that. Like they could edit that and make it look so much better right now. Like,
right.
And that it seems like they could easily do that. And James Cameron's made enough money that he could probably send he could sell a whole new set of, DVDs with, saying re-edited with, current CGI or something like that. So what were, do you think you don't remember anything from that movie? So you think this might be the first time you saw it?
I mean, bits and pieces looked kind of familiar, but no, this was like the first time that I can say like I sat and watched all the way through and got the, how everything tied in together. And he like uses the voice of her mom. She's trying to call her mom, tells her where she's at. I could tell right away. And then sure enough, it cuts. Which did it say if he killed her mom? I don't know if it said, but
it just implied because you go in there, see there's wreck. I mean, the house is wrecked, and then he's
got her voice, so that's why I don't know. Yeah. No, I liked this much more than Rambo.
Okay.
I liked the, the 80s like sound effects and the music that they played, like when the Terminator was on the screen. Remind me of like a video game, like really old video game sounds.
Yeah.
Which was an awesome touch.
I like the did it or whatever. I think that's
Does it not sound like a video game though?
Oh, it definitely 100%. But I think it like the video games probably got it from that you're playing, probably got it from that. Like this is, because it's very like these are very electronic music. During that time, a lot of it was just like all those types of devices were new, like all those synthesizers and everything like that. So they used it like, Beverly Hills Cop, the Axel Foley thing is like a huge, that was a huge sound from that time. But a lot of it was like that type of sound effect. And that goes to like early cell phone, like, when they used the MIDIs, the MIDIs, like you could barely recognize what song it was trying to replicate. Certain songs it would be like sound good, but most of them you'd be like, oh my God. But you still thought you were cool. You're like, I only paid 99 cents for this. And now I have, the Ghostbusters as my ringtone.
Of course you did.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I like that movie. Now, so you mentioned them coming out naked. I'm sure that you slowed down the spot where Arnold's walking towards those guys and he's totally naked because you could see Arnold Schwarzenegger's third member when he's doing that. So, I don't think they anticipated high definition TVs when they shot that.
I did not realize you could see that. I was not pausing and zooming in. I was watching, and then as soon as I seen it, I was like, no wonder this is one of Jason's favorite movies.
Exactly.
Big, strong men, and he's got his pants off.
Right, exactly. It's Arnold coming down naked. I'm just like, oh my God, this is, I mean, yeah, this is like a lot of the pornos that I watch, That's Bill Paxton is one of those, where he gets the clothes from those guys. Bill Paxton's one of the actors that he hits. I think it's the guy that he hits. Yeah, he puts his arm, I think it's the one that he puts his arm right through. He just punches that guy, and then the other one. And then, I think it's hilarious that he gets those clothes from that guy because there's no way that they're the same size.
Yeah.
Arnold is like this, there's very, less than 0.1% of the, maybe even 0.01% of the population would have clothes that would fit Arnold. And it's not people walking around at night at 2 a.m,
right,
in New York or
skinny guys that are, right.
Yeah.
I didn't understand where they had the one where man, this like right after the eye. This might have been when he was like cutting into his hand or his arm or whatever. But like they've got he's staying at some like motel or something. Guy knocks on the door. He's like, "Oh, you got a dead cat in there or something." And then Arnold's just in there with like flies on his face. I don't understand. Was that just supposed to imply that he had been in there for a while and like his skin was rotting? I don't.
Yeah,
because this was all supposed to be the events of like a day or two, right? I don't.
Yeah, I don't know why it would smell like that already. Like, like
that part I didn't like really get.
The thing I liked was like when it goes to it shows all the possible things
right.
that he could say.
Yeah.
And then he goes, F off, asshole.
I like that. That was probably supposed to be futuristic looking too when it like cut to the red and stuff. It's supposed to look like a computer. It's like, this looks way worse than it did before. And this takes place in what, 2029?
Well, that's when like that is like present day, so that's like 80s. But like his technology is from 2029.
Right, that's what I was getting at. Is that
when he comes back? Yeah,
and then it cuts to 2029, and there's like the big, just the machines have taken over, and they're all in hiding.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you that when I saw that when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Because like we didn't even have a personal computer at that time. So like to see like a readout like that, you're just like, that's mind blowing. Oh my God.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, I get to think of things differently than you think, but I'm glad you like that movie because I think it's really good. Now, would you compare? Did you like T2 more than T1?
I need to go back and watch Terminator 2, but I remember liking Terminator 2. I don't know that this one. It was good. This was better than what I thought it was going to be. Like I said, I go into these things with an open mind, but as it's going on, as it starts and everything, like, I don't know. We're going to give this one a shot. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I did end up liking it though. I would put it in front of Rambo, but behind Die Hard.
Okay. I like Die Hard better too. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. The first Terminator, really, when you think about it, when you watch it, it is closer to like a Halloween or a Jason movie where you have like this unstoppable force.
Right,
and I really think that like a lot of like the inspiration for that movie is like, let's have this supernatural stalker. This time it's a robot. That's the reason why it's unstoppable. You can't stop it. But, let's add these sci-fi elements. And, it is a cool story. Like, and it obviously, like the AI taking over is really relatable to today, right? Like, we're more AI stuff. Like sometimes you watch those movies and you're just like, okay, that's pretty relatable for, what's going on right now. You can, sometimes things are so outdated, and there was obviously certainly outdated graphics. The clothes and the hairstyles are insane from that time, but
that's my favorite part about watching like the 80s and 90s stuff is just seeing the old things. And even just like when they drive by and you see the old logos like fast food restaurants or just the products that they have.
Yeah.
That's a nostalgic thing for me, seeing all the 90s stuff, the way things used to be.
Yep. Yeah.
It was funny though, like you had mentioned, like the unstoppable thing, like he gets blown up and then it's just the front half of him is like chasing her down the duct or the hydraulic press or whatever.
Yeah.
I did not care for it. Oh man, what did she say? She says, "You're terminated." Like he's got like his claw around her, said, "You're terminated." She just magically knows where the button is and how to turn the press on the perfect timing. And somehow the hydraulic press is enough to destroy it, but the bombs were not.
It crushes it. Yeah. No, it also is a mind screws with your mind because he sends Kyle, John Connor sends Kyle Reese back and it ends up being Kyle Reese ends up being his dad. So it's like, who was his dad in the first place if Kyle, it's
one of those
there's
things
a
where you start
time
to think too hard about the time
Yeah.
travel thing. The chicken or the egg, what came first?
Right, exactly. Like, how did John Connor come to be if, there had to be a future first? Like, it'll really mess with your mind. But that came out in 84. Back to the Future was right, the next year. So there was some time travel stuff going on around that time, like time travel, Back to the Future, I think was 85 when it came out. So, yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked it. All right, man. I think we head out of here. Anything else?
No. Moving on.
Give your assignment. You got to find Ghostbusters, dude.
Right.
All right. For Jacob, I'm Jason. Let's go, Lions.